Okay. Hi. Welcome to the. We're gonna start this with an introduction.
Oh, wow.
Holy shit!
Oh,
Welcome to the Lore Foundry.
yeah, that's Daron.
I'm shit. You messed me up. That's Greg.
Yep.
You said that's Daron. I was gonna say I'm Greg.
So close.
So close. And Greg's got something he wants to talk about.
Yeah. So we were kind of rummaging over things to talk about, and then
We were sifting through the very deep barrel that is our ideas for this podcast.
Yeah, and then I remembered something which I don't think I've talked about before, but maybe I did in passing. So nowadays in the 20th century,
we're in the 21st century.
I know. Yeah, I know. But in the 20th century, we had,
so it was the before days.
The before days.
Okay, but not that far.
Not that far, though.
Okay.
Yeah. We had the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers.
Okay.
Well,
Ooh.
before that, there was the Habsburgs.
Okay.
So that may not be the best, that may not be a completely.
So we're not talking old money. We're talking old money.
Old money, yeah. So basically there's a royal family that I've been inspired by for my RPG setting, and that is the Habsburgs, and they were a very extremely powerful noble family that my understanding is at times basically had someone in every relevant kingdom in Europe, and they're incredibly inbred. And ended up, my understanding is their reign ended up ending because they couldn't get suitable heirs. They couldn't keep on,
at least in
kids.
Spain.
At least in Spain. But if you search Habsburg, you'll find like the Habsburg jaw is something that will come up quite a bit. Like they're like physical deformities.
One thing that I heard, I think, on the Pirate History podcast was that the classic like uppity like noble person trope, the "oh, how dare you insult me," apparently, or could be traced back to mimicking the way that jaw sits in a mouth, like as you're trying to talk, and so
right, because you're trying to look more.
Either, I mean, for me, when I do it, I either put my jaw back or way forward, which you're basically just mimicking a deformity, which I guess to me makes sense as to why that would be associated with rich people.
So I was learning about this, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I was like, how can we make it just a little bit more fantastic, right? How can we go that extra step? And so building off of a couple other things that I knew existed in my setting, a couple other things that I wanted, there's kind of like in my imperial culture, there's basically two schools of magic that are approved of, two traditions of magic.
Okay.
And one of them is kind of more like your standard wizards, right? They've got an academy, they do all this stuff. And the other one is a couple steps removed from like a fertility cult in a sense. Like it's something where at its lowest level, it's like witches and very like pagan practice, traditionally like kind of pagan inspired practices. And then there's basically a particular sect of that magical tradition that's become more refined and civilized and all these other things, right?
Okay.
Put on the veneer of respectability, and then is now used in the like in people who have more money will go to them for health services, basically. So something for a while I thought, man, it'd be really cool if like, what if like people who are noble like couldn't have children at all unless there was some particular reagent or potion that could make them
I remember.
fertile.
Yeah, we did talk about this.
We did
at some point, but it's very dusty in my memory.
Yeah, and I don't remember if we talked about it on the podcast
right.
or just in person.
I don't think that it was on the podcast. So, it wasn't the podcast. Congrats on round 2, baby.
Right, yeah. And I thought that would be kind of neat, but then I was like, I don't know. That seems like kind of too broad to have just the entire royal family to be like this. And I was like, wait, no, Habsburgs. It's just one. Like it's one very powerful. Family that
very powerful family of sex cultists.
That they're not sex cultists.
They're patrons of the sex cultists.
They're patrons of the sex cultists. So I was just kind of thinking about like like thinking about this and a couple things, I realized a couple things. So, uh, this family would have incredibly strong control of its members because they could allow or deny access
Oh,
to,
right.
right,
To fertility.
to fertility,
Yeah.
basically. And so that means that, you know, they have to be loyal to the family in order to have access to, you know, to be able to, you know, have children, which in turn means heirs, which means
Yeah.
staying
Yeah.
around.
Like they can prune branches as they see fit.
Yeah. So, you know, I think like, you know, you can give that as your excuse as to why they're so powerful. And it's something where like I would very much want them to feel like Rockefellers, like feel kind of like they're maybe not the biggest player, but they're very big. And there's something that like kind of everyone else is a little bit concerned about. And you know, there's conspiracy theories about them as well, 'cause
Right.
that's really fun. And it also gave me like a really good excuse as to why there is this kind of hypocrisy about like you have about like having only allowing kind of like two traditions of magic instead of only allowing one. Because at least in my setting, my thought was that like, you know, like the kind of wizard school, traditional wizard tradition was like magic is dangerous. And, you know, look at all the catastrophes that have happened in the past century of, you know, these magical conflicts that have torn the earth apart. And, you know, we're responsible. You know, we will find all of the people who are magical, you know, like we'll do like census. We'll do like, we'll go around like every 4
with our
years
magical
and find
detecting
them.
stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure that there's no like homegrown dangerous magicians, right? We'll take them in. We'll, you know, like, you know, we're the people that can keep them safe, because anyone who isn't out of line, we don't tell you this, but anyone who isn't out of line, we end up euthanizing and using, you know, the components of their soul as magical tools.
Oh,
But
right. That's part of the, you know, wizard's soul to help you concentrate
yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. And which, you know, also realizing that they would be doing something that now gives a very like legitimate grievance for people who are trying to not be part of the organization, where it's like, hey, you know, they euthanize, like they murder people, right?
Yeah.
Anyone, like people who are not like they don't think are going to be in line, like they don't think are going to follow the rules, they get rid of them when, you know, basically like before they're allowed, you know, to be you know, like allowed freedom. And so I was like, okay, well then, you know, but then I want to have like this other tradition that's like very different, that's much more like worshiping the mother goddess kind of thing,
Right.
that deals with fertility, that deals with health, because I don't want the tradition. I do like the kind of dichotomy in that. I never thought I would say this because as a kid I didn't like it, but I do kind of like the dichotomy between like arcane magicians not having a lot of control over like healing, but then another tradition having that, like one tradition being more focused on the body when another one not being focused there. And this was the reason that I came, like this was like a perfect,
they are being protected by
this, yeah, like this just fell into place where it's like, oh no, like this, like, you know, they're these people have gotten the pass. It's kind of like in Warhammer 40k, the Adeptus Mechanicus worship the Omnisaya, which is clearly not the Emperor.
Right.
But then they're like, nah, he's just the Emperor, right? Like, so they're, you know, like that's the, like the reason why the like the Adeptus Mechanicus can exist alongside the ecclesiarchy is because the Empire needs the Forge Worlds. They need that production. There's like, right. And so similarly in this setting, the reason why, you know, like people that like, you know, worship this fertility goddess can exist alongside, you know, this more traditional school of magic is because, you know, people who have money, who have resources and wealth, and particularly the, you know, the Habsburg equivalents, they need this this magical tradition to be able to exist. And so that was something that, like, when those pieces fell together, I got really excited.
And I imagine that these Habsburg equivalents, we'll just call them the Rockefellers,
Yeah.
would probably have like both in their pockets, right? Like they're probably like big donators to both the like arcane schools, and obviously they are the primary patrons of the fertility sex cults. And so it's like the wizard school, if they really wanted to go after it, it's like, okay, well, they're like your funding dries up by like half.
Yeah.
Right, if you go after these things.
Oh, yeah.
And the fertility people aren't gonna go away, because if they leave the Rockefellers alone, or like stop giving their services, well, all right, then they'll just sick the wizards on you.
Yep.
Which is, yeah, no, and I guess by proxy, then the Rockefellers would kind of just control, other kinds of like healing magic, and then just the wizard authority in general.
Yeah. So one thing that I definitely want there to be is that, so this kind of, it's a religion like obsessed with fertility and with like the flesh, like literally like physical flesh, right? And I want there to be like division. So it's like they're following a particular magical tradition, right? And that, at least in my setting, is like there's like a number of like magical spells and abilities that have been created by a particular entity, that these people are studying. That it's literally like, you can think of it like a tech tree, basically, right? It's like they're studying this thing. It is a objective, like quantifiable thing that exists in the universe, is that there is that this magic tradition, like, is something separate from other ones. It's not like we're collecting a bunch of ideas together. It's like, no, this one thing right here is the tradition, and there's a lot of stuff put on to it around it, but the core of it is something that's like there's an objective core to it. And like witches in the woods are studying the same magic that the people giving treatment to nobles are, but one's being persecuted and one isn't,
right?
And that hypocrisy is like deliberate, right? It's because like they like this there's the people treating the nobles like they're controlled, they're captured basically by the the elites of society. It's something that they can dictate, like like who who are they giving services to, or they can make sure that they're not going to be doing crazy things, or air quotes, make sure they're not going to be doing
they're not going
things.
to be committing the arcane equivalent of a heresy,
right?
They're not going to step too far out of line,
which in this case would be like making chimeras and things like that.
Are they like flesh crafters at all? Oh boy,
yeah. So it's definitely meant to be like oh, they're great, they heal you and they make you, they fix your body, and they, who doesn't like fertility, right? And then on the other side of it is like their dominion is like the corporeal form, right? And anything within that is like fair game. So it's like, we're gonna make you into like something, you want to look like, you want to become something different, like you want basically plastic surgery, like they're the people that can do it. Like you want this person's face, bring me their face,
right?
Like,
oh god, it's a little bit like in the Witcher. I haven't read the books, played the games, but the TV show I watched, and they've got like wizards who will do something like that. They like draw on like some magic markers or whatever, and then you can craft somebody to look the way that they want to look. So I imagine it's kind of like the same thing. Then maybe you'll get like a particularly depraved Rockefeller in a particularly depraved sex cultist, and they're gonna start making some like body horror abominations in the basement of a cathedral.
Yeah, so it very much like, I want the dark side of this tradition to be inspired by the BioShock, like the first area in BioShock. I forget the name of the doctor, but the I think the quote that sums up him is that like he's gonna be the Picasso of plastic surgery in a
Jesus.
and then there is in Vampire the Masquerade, there's a particular school of magic called vicissitude, which is about like the changing of the body. And so there's
Right.
things like, you can kind of like turn into like a war form in it, where like you kind of become like like spines grow out of your skin, you get
Okay.
taller, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
become like a demon, right?
Right.
So things like that,
The classic like hybrid vampire
Mhm.
look. Yeah.
So I definitely want there to be like a dark side, and that's like why people are like rightly afraid of it, right? Like
Right.
there is like, it's not like the concerns about these people is not completely unfounded, but it's there's just a lot that people don't understand, and yeah, I just thought that would be a really fun way to like here it was like a very clear faction that like suddenly like materialized out of all these different pieces that I had put together, which is I think one of the really fun things about world building.
When you finally find the one thing that ties your disparate ideas together.
Yeah, you have all the like, these are cool, I want all these things, and then you have something that brings it all together. And that's why I think world building is really fun to just do. You do kind of take it slowly, kind of just like aggregate different things, and stuff starts coming together, and it's really fun.
And the things that you build 5-10 years ago, whatever, like you can still, like that setting, you might trash it, but there might be parts of that you continue to use. Like the Legendarium of Tolkien wasn't built in a freaking night. Like that was a lifetime of work that was based out of his love of words, right? And so he just like used that and built on it. Not that it's the end all be all of anything, but like, yeah, the Lord of the Rings took like tens of years to make, like an incredibly long time, lots of revisions, and he didn't really like those. Even he wanted to write the Silmaril. The Lord of the Rings was just kind of like a okay, I'll write these books if you publish the Silmaril. And so yeah, like it's an ongoing thing, and there's a very nice feeling that you get when you finally like have a cohesive idea that checks all the boxes that you want to check. But like the entire time until then is really frustrating.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yes.
So,
I'm currently experiencing that with religion in my setting, where I've got like all these different things that are cool and I want them, and then I'm kind of slowly, they've been starting to fit together.
Right. And another thing that helps a lot with that is like just consuming different kinds of media. Since like the more, and especially like unrelated things that you watch, read, play, whatever, the more different ideas you can kind of pull together into your setting, and redress to make it your own. Because I mean, creativity is just stolen thoughts. Yeah. I mean, honestly.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited for some more of your religion stuff, especially like, I mean, because you bring a lot out of the like Roman Catholic Church, and like having like grown up Catholic, I'm like, yeah, it's neat. I'm like, I feel a certain like weird connection to it.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like, you're like, I don't know about this thing, and I'm like, okay, well, listen here, it's really stupid and convoluted.
No, I really need to learn a lot more like Jewish stories.
Oh yeah,
because I definitely like. There's a lot of it's partially because like all of the coolest words are Hebrew, like behemoth, Leviathan, shibboleth, like so many great stuff from, and so I want to get more of those stories, and because I'm sure there's other really cool stuff in there.
Right. And then you can feel like you're kind of going back more to like the roots of the inspiration that people have taken from for years and years and years and years and years, right? Because everything's just retellings of older stories, and so you can kind of feel like you have a more pure, less filtered but still slightly filtered story to tell based on Jewish myth, instead of a story based on a story based on a story based on Jewish myth. So I think that's really cool. Anything else?
No. So if any of you have an example of when a bunch of different ideas came together, around one new idea, let us know. Send us an email at
lorefoundry@gmail.com.
Thanks. I didn't remember.
You're welcome. I run the email.
Yeah. Rate us. Do those kinds of things.
Right. And send us your Jewish mythological stories.
Oh yeah.
Because we'd be interested.
And I'm such a sucker for those things. Like I'm
Right.
so easy to please. I'm a little embarrassed.
That's all right, Greg. We all have our faults.
Yep.
In any case, we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye. I do think it's interesting that Joan of Arc's story is so like, it's like we're doing this for the French, like it's the French, and it's like, why is like God so chummy with the French?
Right.